Good morning. People are still asleep, it sounds like. It's this beautiful spring, late spring morning. Good morning. The flowers are out. Yes, there we go. Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Bangor. My name is Reverend Drew Moeller, and it is a pleasure to be with you for those of you who are in the sanctuary and also those who are joining us today on Zoom. Today, we have a annual kind of event, our question box sermon. And in addition to answering some of your questions, we are also going to interview a special guest and ask her some questions, which will be a little bit later on in the service. So this is a special day, and we're glad that you are joining us today. Before we get started, I want to ask Sue McKay to come forward and offer us some information and announcements.
Good morning, everyone. For those of you who have been either under a rock or just don't know, our fiscal year ends June 30, and we would really appreciate it if people could get in their pledges for this current fiscal year so we can get ready to start the new one. We've got a basket over there for pledges and for other donations, so thank you very much. The drumming group will meet to kind of talk about getting started up again at 11:30 in the sanctuary, not to compete with the Chimes concert outside. A reminder that if you're in the sanctuary, please hum during the hymns, do not sing. People that are at home, sing as loud as you want. Let's see. If you didn't pick up your half page of announcements when you came in, please pick one up in the Dorothy Memorial Hall on your way out. And services are being Zoomed, as you know, so if you don't want to be on camera, best not to sit in the center section. Today is our ringing bells and feeding souls starting at 11:30, going till noon. So please, if you can, stick around, enjoy the concert. And the Guild will be meeting for lunch off-site on Wednesday at 11:30, and I don't know where, but at Phyllis's. Last but not least, the office will be closed from June 20 to June 28. If you would be have the skills to assist with checking voicemails during the week, please contact the office or someone from council. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. As we get ready to enter into our time of being together in reflection and community, let us open our hearts to the wonderful prelude that is prepared by Molly this morning.
What does the world require of you? 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 What does injustice want of kindness? What does the coming in the world? What does this justice want of kindness? What does the coming require of you?
Because she's so great, we're going to ask Sue to come back. to light our chalice this morning with our special chalice lighter, Kaylee Grogan.
Our chalice lighting this morning is entitled Open to Unexpected Answers by Julianne Lepp. We seek our place in the world and the answers to our heart's deep questions. As we seek, may our hearts be open to unexpected answers. May the light of our chalice remind us that this is a community of warmth, of wisdom, and welcoming of multiple truths.
Now invite you to join in our opening hymn, Where Do We Come From? And again, if you're in the sanctuary, you're welcome to hum along to the tune and the words. And those of you at home, sing so loudly so we can hear you here.
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? What are we? Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? What are we? Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? What are we? Life is a riddle and a mystery.
Let's put our hands up, and that was wonderful. We have a little set change here for our time for all ages. So as I was thinking about our service today, and we do, yep. Thank you, Phyllis, right on the spot. Our theme of the theological construct of asking questions. And I was trying to figure out, asking the question of what story to tell, and I couldn't think of a story off the top of my head. I looked through a couple of my resources and didn't find anything. And then it came to me, this old Woody Guthrie song, which, if you can imagine, is kind of a dialogue between a young child and a parent at bedtime. And as young children often do, they're full of questions. They keep asking questions, and they don't want to go to bed, right? So this is called Why, Oh Why. Why can't a dish break a hammer? Tell me why, oh why? 'Cause a hammer has got a pretty hard head. Good night, good night. Tell me why, oh why, oh why? Tell me why, oh why? Because. Good night, Why can't a bird eat an elephant? Tell me why, oh why? Because an elephant has got a pretty tough skin. Good night, good night. Yeah, but why can't a mouse eat a streetcar? Tell me why, oh why? Because a mouse's stomach just isn't big enough, dear. Good night, good night. Why does a horn make music? Tell me why, oh why? Because a horn player blows air into it. Good night, good night. Why does a cow drink water? Tell me why, oh why? Because a cow gets thirsty just like the rest of us. Good night, good night. Why don't you answer my questions? Tell me why, oh why? Dear, not every question has an answer to. Good night. Good night. Just as we live out the questions of our lives, we gather at this sacred time of our service to be able to share our experiences as we wrestle and grapple with those questions, the joys, the sorrows, and all the things that lie in between. So I want to light a candle. Yesterday, I attended a wonderful graveside service for Bonnie Wood, who is a very active member here for quite a while, and just wanted to remember her. I'm lighting a specific silent candle for someone in our community. And finally, I light one last candle for all the joys and sorrows that remain within the deep inner recesses of our hearts and those that are just present just below the surface. May they find hope, love, connection, and may they find a nonviolent release. Please join me in the spirit of meditation and prayer. Great universal spirit, interconnected web of which we are a part, we gather as a beloved community to hold up the joys and sorrows that make up the fabric of our lives. Today, we remember our loved ones who have passed and celebrate birthdays of people who are still very much living. We hold in our hearts those who are suffering from ailments, from COVID, from other afflictions, both of the medical side and also emotional and mental struggles. May they find the comfort and the help and support that they need to work through whatever ailment they are dealing with. We also hold with great joy those in our community and our surrounding community who are in the process of graduating from high school, from college, from graduate school. May their journey continue as they celebrate with the hard-earned degrees that they have received. And finally, we give thanks. We give thanks to all the people in our community who work hard to give receptions, to make our grounds look beautiful, and to make this congregation continue to work as smoothly as it does. Spirit, we gather in this space because we know that each life tells a meaningful story. Each life holds a deep and abiding truth. By coming together in this time, in this space, and hearing the details of each other's stories, we grow closer to each other, and we grow closer to becoming one. Blessed be, and amen.
Is entitled Try to Love the Questions Themselves by Rainer Maria Rilke. Have patience with everything unresolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves as if they were locked rooms or books written in a very foreign language. Don't search for the answers, which could not be given to you now because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps then, someday, far in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer. Blessed be.
May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your side. May the sun shine warm upon your face. The rains fall soft upon your fields, and until we meet again, and until we meet again, may the goddess that loves us all hold you in the palm of her hand. Amen.
Thank you, Molly, for that wonderful blessing. That piece really highlighted your range. I was like, wow, she can. Ooh, ooh. Like I was having some altitude sickness there. So today our service celebrates the power of the question. The question is a primary path in faith. It is what led our ancestors to separate themselves from established religious orders. As the people started reading sacred scriptures for themselves and then asking questions. And asking those questions, they noticed incongruity in scripture and in faith leaders. They also found that to question helped them go into deeper, more nuanced understandings of the mystery of life. Being able to question is a primary part of faith growth, both as individuals and as a society. I think that younger children often have much to teach us in this realm because they are very skilled at asking questions. A major part of our role as people of faith is to create a space where we can allow people to ask questions and to explore new truths in freedom and in a responsible way. Asking questions at times can be hard and inconvenient, like when we're trying to put our children to bed. But it's still very important for us to continue to ask questions in a way that is not a way of ridicule or criticism. Still, there is wisdom in the question. In my mind, asking questions is probably one of the most precious skills that we have for ongoing growth and transformation. We live in a world that is driven by facts and statistics, and even then, we are all too aware of how much information can also deceive us when it has been manipulated and changed around to try to bring about a particular way of understanding instead of really trying to get at the truth. Asking questions is a fundamental thing for all of us. It's a key to theology, to science, and to medicine. It is also something that is absolutely necessary for our growth as a society and as a world community. How do we deal with difficult things that are going on in our lives? How do we deal with gun violence? How do we deal with wars? How do we deal with poverty? Today, in honor of the spiritual practice of asking questions, I will be responding to some of your questions related to topics of faith, religion, and Unitarian Universalism. Please keep in mind that these responses are mine and not necessarily the views of all Unitarian Universalists or even this congregation. They are my reflections based on my studies, my life experience, and exploration into the world of spirituality, faith, and the human condition. So I'm going to invite Sue McKay to come forward and ask the first question. I only had one person submit a question before the service, and it was a really good one. So I'm going to bring my binder with me so I can refer to some of my notes. And then Sue will open it up, and if there's somebody here in the congregation who has a question, we will bring a microphone to you. Or if you're online, if you start working on typing that question into the chat, we'll take probably about, I don't know, 4 or 5 questions or so, and then we'll move on to the next part. Mm-hmm.
Okay, the first question is from Logan McLaughlin. After seeing last week's service with the coming of age service and the flower communion, I started thinking inward about my own faith and what I believe. I've never been a religious or spiritual person, at least not really. But seeing all of the young people stand in front of the congregation and state their beliefs, I genuinely wanted to know how one much later in life could get started on such a journey of self-discovery. So, to word this in the form of a question, how does one who has never gone on the journey to find their own faith get started, Reverend Drew?
I like these really easy questions.
It could be a sermon into itself.
This could be a
yes.
sermon. That's why I wanted to take some notes, and I appreciate Logan for sending me his question ahead of time so I could be a little more thoughtful in the response. The Taoist sage Lao Tzu says that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. When I was serving as a chaplain in New Hampshire, I would go on rounds with the medical staff, and I would often have doctors and nurses who would dismiss my question of whether a patient needed a visit or not because they said, oh, that person is not religious. To which I would say, that's possible. Not everyone is religious, but everyone is spiritual because everyone believes something. The process that our young people go through in the coming of age program begins with an attention to looking within and bringing the awareness of what one believes to the surface. And then it creates a desire or intention to investigate those beliefs and see how those beliefs interact with each other. In some religious and spiritual communities, there is a prescription about how that is done. But in our Unitarian Universalist faith, we leave the process of unfolding and reflecting on what it is that we hold dear, what values we hold to be valuable. We leave that up to the individual. And so as I look around in the sanctuary here, I know that we have people who use the process of meditation, of prayer, of engaging in nature, going out in nature and seeing how the natural world is unforming. I know that there are people who find spirituality in hunting. I know that there are people who find spirituality in sailing. There are people who find spirituality in being physically active, a way of kind of loosening up all the things that are inside. So the answer is, where do you start? You start where you are. You start with that, attention to where you are in the moment, what it is that you believe, and slowly teasing out from there with intention how those things fit together. So hopefully that answers your question, Logan. I don't know if I see Logan in the room today. Hopefully you're joining us online. So,
I don't have any questions in the chat.
no questions in the chat. So are there any questions here? I see one in the back. And I'm going to recruit Phyllis. Can you take that up to Linda? I think it needs to be turned on. And I can come out here a little bit more because I don't need to hide necessarily behind the candles.
Still trying to formulate this into a question. I'll just ramble for a moment. So our first principle is to honor the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Mm-hmm. And we live in a society where there seem to be a lot of people who don't think that way. And there's a lot of activity that would imply they do not honor or respect the worth and dignity of whole groups of other people. And that makes me feel like I don't want to honor their worth and dignity, which does not feel very you-ish. So, or very good. But at the same time, I harbor anger when I see other people treating individuals or groups of people in nasty ways. So just, I don't know what the question is, but guidance in how to adjust my thinking to help me honor their worth and dignity whilst
Yeah.
they're doing what they're doing or whatever.
Yeah. That's a real struggle. Thank you for naming that. I have to say that I struggle with that a lot. And I think the way that I try to make sense of that is to realize that I have lived a life in a way that has had certain privilege. I have lived a life where I have had a lot of things going for me as a white male, cisgender. You can just keep piling that on. And so there's people who have different life experiences, and I kind of wonder there, but for fortune, if I might have a different experience, if somehow I was harmed or wasn't nurtured or wasn't cared for. So I think you did a great job of separating the person from the behavior and the anger. I think it's important to channel the anger in a way to when people are treating other people in a way that is harmful, that is not helpful, that it's important for us to speak up and stand up for that and say, this is not okay. It doesn't matter to me what your life experience is. Harming somebody else is not the answer, right? And depending on the relationship, maybe there's a way that one can engage in a dialogue or whatnot. And we also know that there's sometimes people who just are not open to that, right? So one of the ways that I deal with this personally is through my meditation practice. There's two meditations that work really, really well for me. One is called Tong Lin, where we focus on different people who are in the world. We start often with ourselves or with loved ones, and then start offering words out to other people. And the refrain is, may other people be happy, may they be secure, may they be comfortable in their mind and their body, just like me. And then I say, just like Linda, just like Kaylee, just like Judy. And another similar meditation is metta loving kindness meditation, where we offer words to other people. Very similar to that. May you be happy. May you be happy. May you be happy. May you be comfortable in your mind and your body. I always add, may you be always surrounded by a deep sense of abiding love. And it's amazing in these meditations. There are certain people who I have sometimes a rage towards. And by sitting in meditation, I soften that a little bit. And I think that that's helpful because it allows me to be more effective in talking to people. And I think we all have had that experience, like when we're really rageful and we're angry and we try to start a dialogue, how does that go? Not so well, right? That escalates often into a shouting match, or just getting so it just fans the flames. But if at least I can see there's some humanity there, and in some ways it might be making an assumption, but I do believe that people want to be happy and people want to be healthy and want to be free. By doing that practice, I see their humanity. I see me and them and me. And that helps. Doesn't make it all go away. It's still, and these days, it's still sometimes a struggle, but it does bring it to a place where it's a little bit better. Yeah. So great question. Yeah. Are there any other questions? Anything online?
Nope.
Our online people are being very quiet today.
Now? Um, So there are a lot of losses going on right now.
Yeah.
Losses in the world, losses in our community. Many of us have had personal losses recently. It all kind of feels like it's compiling. And so I have this is kind of two parts. What do you recommend to us, especially those of us who don't meditate, how it best to find our spiritual center that allows us to handle all of these losses better? And what are you doing for yourself for self-care? How are you managing in the middle of all of the stuff that's happening right in our own community right now? And I guess that's my question.
Yeah. So it is difficult sometimes when we're faced with an incredible amount of loss, an incredible amount of upheaval. There's some Supreme Court decision that we're expecting is going to change a lot of things. There's violence going on, and it stirs a lot of things up. And I think that I think the most important thing, which is maybe not the easy answer, is to allow ourselves to feel that. I do have times when you get ready to sit down and meditate, or just a couple times in the last month where I've sat down on the couch to watch the evening news, and I just started bawling. I think it's important that we feel what we're feeling and allow that grief to move through our body. Because I think when we I think in our society, we often try to push grief away. We try to ignore it. We just try to go on with our daily lives. But the thing is, if we hold it in, it doesn't go anywhere, or it manifests itself in our body and our mind and our spirit. And so I think that there's most important thing is to experience it, and then depending on what kind of spiritual practice you have, using that as a tool for softening it. If you read about the January 6th thing and you're feeling rage and anger, maybe going out for a run is the best thing that you can do to soften that, to loosen up the muscles in your body, to channel that rage into a way that you can be thoughtful and mindful about how you use that rage. So that's, I guess, the number one thing is feel it, and then it helps to develop a spiritual practice or have some sort of way, or think about what do you need to do. One of the things I'm aware of in mindfulness right now around like self-care stuff is I'm aware that I also comfort eat. I'm carrying probably about an extra 12 to 15 pounds right now that I am working on starting to lose, because that's sometimes what I do. I don't think it's necessarily totally unhealthy, but if I'm doing that all the time, it's very unhealthy, right? It affects me. In addition to that, I also engage in therapy. I have a therapist that I see regularly. I engage in spiritual direction, so I meet with another minister and explore what's going on, what's moving on in my being. I am trying to get a little bit more physically active, but that's not something that I do. Summer's coming, so the sailing helps a lot with that. And I also have colleagues, and I reach out to colleagues sometimes when I'm really struggling to get their perspective. And I would say more than anything else, my meditation practice has been really, really helpful. I keep coming back to that, but it is a really core thing. And it helps me see things in perspective. So when I'm feeling overwhelmed, when I'm noticing a loss, it also helps me to say, this is the cycle of life. This is part of impermanence, right? And just as there are things that are dying, there are babies being born in our community. Madeline, this beautiful little girl, and another AJ, who was just born a week or two ago. So it helps to remind ourselves that it's not all just this, and that this too shall pass. Right? Yeah. So Great question. Yeah. Maybe time for one more? Any other? Do we have anybody from online? No. Okay. JV.
Have you ever asked yourself, what is my role as a human being regarding the issues that caused the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement? What is my uh, duty, or what should I do about the mistreatment of women and people who have different lifestyles? What is my responsibility as a human being, as a Unitarian, regarding these matters? What actions should I be taking? What am I willing to do? Have I imagined myself in the shoes of those who are mistreated in the manner that I referred to? Have I looked at my family members and thought, what if they were on the other end? They were dealing with those issues that I'm referring to. But above all, what am I willing to do as a human being?
I think about those things daily. That's something that is constantly, is my microphone on? Okay. It's something that is on my mind very regularly. I try to incorporate that into my preaching. I try to incorporate talking about those things into the words that I use and the assumptions that I make about relationships. And I also try to listen. I try to engage in conversations to hear, because there are some things that, again, my privileged experience has not necessarily informed me of in a way that is meaningful. I also try, this year, I have not really done a curriculum because there's been so many other things going on. But I have done some really useful, I think, workshops. I think, look around the room. Last year we did a really powerful year-long process of soul searchers, of looking at our own privilege, the way that we work in the world. We had small groups who were meeting, and we had monthly groups and whatnot. So I try to look to find programming and things like that will help us engage in that work. I've also, in the community, have found ways to get involved in teaching meditation over at the barn, of working with some of the groups who are working with the Poor People Campaign, have been very helpful in bringing in the Bangor Housing Coalition that works with homeless folks, and being able to open our building up as a resource so that they have a place to store things in the wintertime when it's cold out, to meet somewhere. So those are some of the things that I do, and I could go on for a little bit more about that, but those are, I mean, that's the short answer. That's the short answer. Yeah. So, thank you. Okay. Yeah. And I think that one of the things that is a hard truth that I struggle with is that I realize that more needs to be done, and that sometimes what I am doing doesn't feel like it's enough. And I keep trying to push myself to live on the edge, to lean forward, to look at new ways and think about new ways that I can engage in that work. And that one of the reasons that we're in beloved community is so we can ask those questions of each other, because sometimes we need that creativity to help us think differently. Yeah. Okay. Is it, can people hear me? Maybe change it? I think it is on. Yeah, okay. But maybe if we can nudge, I don't know if we have any more capacity to nudge it up a little bit. The problem, if we get too loud, it might be a little feedback. So, all right. So just a second, I'm gonna grab my book here. For the last couple of years, I have been doing these question box services, and you have asked questions, and I have tried to answer them as well as I could in the moment. I confess that hearing your questions and thoughts also leads me to deeper reflection on these questions and these questions that people ask. And you may have noticed that some of the questions that come up in these services actually turn into sermons later on next year. I don't know if you've noticed that pattern, but I actually have a method to my madness. Today, however, I want to turn things around a little bit. In our midst, we have a person who has been on her own spiritual journey, a journey that has led her to answer her own calling, to enter into theological school and enter into the process of formation as a Unitarian Universalist minister. So today, I want to invite Kaylee Grogan to come forward in a moment and ask her a few questions about her calling to ministry and faith formation. Welcome, Kaylee. You can stand up, but we're going to have, we need to do a little setup here before you come forward. I have also asked Lori Cartier to join me in asking Kaylee a few questions. And for those of you who might not remember, Lori was Kaylee's coming of age mentor back in the day. That was a while ago, huh? Yeah. So Lori, Kaylee, please come up and let's set up some chairs here so we can all be comfortable. Start us off. I'm going to ask Lori to
Want me to
ask
start?
Kaylee our first question.
So, Kaylee, how has your growing up here at UUSB helped you think about your calling to ministry?
I feel so incredibly blessed to have been raised in this community. And before we moved to Bangor, there was a UU community I was born into in New Hampshire. And so I've always been surrounded by the idea of spirituality and searching for truth and meaning. And UUSB in particular has just given me so many opportunities to explore what ministry can be and what spiritual communities can do, from my time in religious education classes, where I got to do neighboring faiths and learn about religions beyond our own, to the service trips I got to participate in with other Maine UU youth. Those were transformative. I got to be on the religious education committee here as a teenager. I got to lead worship here as a teenager. I was a counter downstairs after church briefly, which I don't know why. I am not very good with money. Thank you, Rosemary, for going through that. There's just been so many opportunities to learn what church is like, and yeah, teach me that this is somewhere I want to be.
Great. Well, as we've just heard, UUSB has done much to prepare you for this calling, but I'm kind of curious, when did you first think that ministry might be something that you wanted to pursue?
Well, it's funny, I'll start actually by when I didn't think ministry was something I wanted to pursue.
Yeah.
Because I led my first worship service and like wrote my first reflection when I was 15 and delivered it up here. And I had something I really wanted to say that I thought was important, and whoever was on the worship committee at the time let me do it, and that was great, and that's all I wanted. And in coffee hour afterwards, someone came up to me. Everyone was very nice, very supportive, but someone came up to me like, well, we know what you're doing when you grow up. And I was like, no. I was like, that was not the intention. That is not the plan. Okay. And it wasn't even a thing that, I thought of as a potential career or life path until actually on these service trips, we went with ministers from Ellsworth and Belfast, and the Ellsworth minister, Sarah Husion, after our trip to New Orleans, came back to her congregation when they asked if she had met any cool UU ministers while we were away. She said, no, well, maybe Tom Grogan's daughter. And I think part of that was I really loved leading. Like, part of what you might not know if you haven't been to UU youth things is we tend to do like mini worship services in the evenings every day of our trip, and that we take turns planning those little worship services. And that's like my favorite part of the service trip. I loved planning the evening worship. If there was extras that people weren't signing up for, I'd sign up to do the extra. And I found out that my peers, that was different. That was their least favorite part of the trip. And so it was just something that those experiences led me to start believing this is something I could keep doing beyond these youth trips. And I got to explore that more in my job recently, but that was sort of those maybe later high school experiences is when I first started thinking about it.
Great.
Awesome. My next question is, Kaylee, you are such a gifted and talented person. There are many things you could do and be successful doing. So why ministry?
I think there's a couple of reasons. And one of them is ministry is not limited to, but includes some of the things I love and feel like I am good at, like writing, public speaking, listening, learning about other people and their beliefs is something I love to do, especially when I got to college. And it's something I've been thinking about since high school and never stopped thinking about. And so I've had other opportunities to do things, to have internships working with different nonprofits and getting experience in, higher ed and all kinds of things, but I just keep returning to ministry, and it's what makes me excited. When I have work that I have to do for my job, it's a pain, but when I have work I have to get done to lead a worship service, it's fun and exciting, and that just has been confirmation that this feels like where I'm going.
Awesome.
Great. Kaylee, making a decision to go into ministry is not an easy one. When did you first decide to answer your call? And how do you imagine your ministry in the future? What kind of ministry are you thinking about? And we're not tying you into anything, right? This is just where you're feeling here in the moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I said, I feel like I've been thinking about ministry for a long time. And I don't feel like I really decided to answer the call until I applied to theological school just this past winter. Really made my decision. But so I actually started my application after I graduated from college and thought I might apply for that year after college because I thought that's what I want to do. But I didn't, and I'm not sure why I didn't. It just never happened, and I ended up getting a job that was really beneficial, and sort of getting comfortable in that for a while, but never losing sight of that application and that I wanted to get back to it. And I was really, really lucky in the job that I have now. I am the interfaith engagement coordinator at Wheaton College. And both the getting to, advocate for students' religious rights and practices, as well as learning just about like the professional world and like what it takes to be an adult in a job in the world. I know that I need to be doing something that feels morally right and good. And so many jobs, even ones that are mostly doing things that are good and right, sometimes you have to compromise things to work for big companies, to follow rules that are not always fair. I see that a lot in higher ed, where I am now. And ministry just continues to feel like the path that will allow me to live out my values and promote my values and what I believe to be truly important as my life thing, that I don't have to put that on hold to like do a career that doesn't align with my values and what I want to see in the world. I guess that goes into what kind of ministry I see myself doing, and I'm not entirely sure. I am very, very interested in the idea of chaplaincy and like hospital chaplaincy. I'm very excited to get to experience that during school and find out if it's something I feel called to. But I think most importantly, social justice and social change need to be a part of my ministry. And I've always wanted to be someone who, goes out to protests and puts my body on the line for things. But also I know that me as a person, I'm extremely introverted. I'm extremely uncomfortable in large crowds. And so it's hard for me to feel like I am finding a place in those movements. And I also see ministry as a place where I can gain some confidence, gain some skills, and bring that to social change movements. And that's the biggest part for me right now.
Great, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Kaylee. So the next thing I want to move into, when I first answered my call to seminary, it was something that just happened kind of, it felt like in a vacuum, in a very small world for me. The very first class that I attended at Hartford Seminary, I had a classmate who was a Presbyterian minister from Ghana. And he asked me, what is your community doing for you as you are making this huge commitment? Ministry is a calling. It is something that is very different from most professions. And I said, well, nothing really. I'm kind of on my own. And at that moment, Francis Aqua sat me down on my front porch in Vernon, Connecticut, and delivered what felt like probably almost a half an hour blessing on me and my future ministry. And that was such a powerful experience for me that I promised myself that if I was ever in ministry and continued in ministry, that if there's ever somebody in our community who reached that point, that we would celebrate that and honor that and name that special decision, that quest that you are now beginning. So I've asked Lori to offer some words of a blessing, and I have some words to share as well. So we're going to invite you, Kaylee, to just relax and soak in what is being said and the energy of affirmation that you're going to feel in this room in a moment as we offer this blessing to you.
We're going to stand? Or?
We're going to stand, and Kaylee is going to just sit there. Yeah. Yeah, and if you want to send, put your hands out and send energy however you want to share. Yeah.
As the chair of the worship committee and as Kaylee's former mentor, on behalf of the UUSB, I say, may the blessings of the sun and the moon and the stars and the, no, I've got it too big, sorry. Start over. May the blessings of the sun and the moon and the stars and the earth and the oceans and the air be upon you. May they guide you as you embark on this journey of deeply sacred and spiritual work to bring you to that readiness we all know you have inside you to be an amazing UU minister. May they give you strength when you need it and support you when you are feeling less than worthy. Know that the elements of the universe are with you and will always be there for you to turn to. Blessed be.
Kaylee, are you okay if I put my hand on your shoulder there? Dear Kaylee, you are embarking on a sacred life journey. You have heard the sound of something outside of you calling you and inviting you to join you on that journey. And you will have many milestones along the way, but there is no final destination. Ministry is not a destination, it is a process of transformation and forever becoming. Few hear this call, and even fewer have the natural gifts, talents, and skills that you possess that make you well suited for this journey. Yet even with all your skills, talents, there will be times in that journey that will be rough and hard going. There will be times when you will doubt your ability to move forward and to do what is being asked of you. My prayer is that you remember to keep moving and to listen to your own conscience, your heart, and your head. And remember that you are never alone. You have a wise family and a beloved community to support you. You will also develop many valuable relationships, including classmates and colleagues who will support you along the way. Remember in times of struggle to reach out. Ministry can be a very lonely vocation, and yet you will never, ever be alone. Kaylee, your relationship with this congregation will change as your formation deepens. You will no longer just be a member beholden to your own interest and the interest of the congregation. You will also start to take on additional responsibilities as being a person accountable to our greater Unitarian Universalist faith, including members of all congregations and colleagues around the world. Kaylee, we know you have not made this decision lightly. We see in you great potential as a minister, and we will support you as much as we can, whatever and wherever that journey takes you. On behalf of the congregation and myself, we bestow a blessing on you in your calling to ministry and the beginning of your ministerial formation. May the divine spirit of love, however you experience it, be with you, hold you, and challenge you, and open you up to surrender what is alive in you and waiting to be born. Bless you, Kaylee. Bless your calling. Bless all the people that you have served and will serve in your ministry. There is a world out there that is waiting for ministers like you. Let the congregation say, amen.
Amen. Blessed be.
Thank you.
You can clap now. Yay.
With that, I now invite you all to rise in body or in spirit as we sing our closing hymn, which I think is rather appropriate. We laugh and we cry, we live and die. Let us, if you're in the sanctuary, hum those words, and if you're at home, sing.
We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a need to be together. We have our hearts to give, we have our thoughts to receive, and we believe that sharing is an answer. Our lives are full of wonder and our time is very brief. The death of one among us fills us all with pain and grief. But as we live, so shall we die, and when our lives are done, the memories we shared with friends, they will linger on and on. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a place to be together. We have the right to grow. We have the gift to believe that peace within our living is an answer. We seek elusive answers to the questions of this life. We seek to put an end to all the waste of human strife. We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind. And then we come together here to make sense of what we find. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a joy being together. And in our search for peace, maybe we'll finally see, even to question truly is an answer.
As we extinguish our Unitarian Universalist chalice flame, symbol of faith, hope, love, connection, and the power of asking questions in a thoughtful and responsible way, let us be reminded that although our worship service has come to an end, our service to the world and to each other and to our callings has just begun. Wonderful. I invite you to join us now in our benediction.
Let us go forth
Thank you all for coming.